for some screaming heavy metal! We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
Hello and thank you for joining us here on the Music Mania podcast. I am Clint Switzer, Paul Lagana joining me here. You are locked and loaded with us here. And Paul, do we have a guest for you today? Mr. Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake is going to be joining us from on the road in Oslo, Norway.
Wow.
That's via Skype, so hopefully we have no communication issues. But no, great to be joined by Joel. He's one of the good guys in the business. And I tell you what, Paul, Joel has we use the term a lot that musicians have done it all. Joel has literally done it all, from Nightranger. He's recorded with Ted Nugent, Dee Snider. He was in Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and now Whitesnake. They're on their greatest hits tour, and they're in Norway.
Clint, Joel's resume is incredible. I mean, just go to his Facebook page or his bio page, and
sure,
you will absolutely see what we're talking about. I mean, unbelievable musicians, and this guy himself, a classical guitarist as well. He's done it all.
Well, Whitesnake has had a history of great musicians playing with them. I mean, just the guitarists, from John Sykes to Doug Aldrich. I mean, drummers like Cozy Powell. I mean, Tommy Aldrich. Reb Beach is in the band right now. This Whitesnake and David Coverdale have always surrounded himself with top-of-the-line musicians. They're on their greatest hits tour now. Joel Hoekstra is a part of that, and great to him to have this gig. And also, we want to talk about our album of the week, which is actually Joel Hoekstra 13's Dying to Live. That is our album of the week. We're talking about it right here. We're going to ask him about it. It was released in October. It's got great musicians on it like Vinny Appice, former Music Mania podcast alum, Jeff Scott Soto, and Russell Allen on vocals. Basically, Joel put together a hard rock album here, and he did a great job with it. We've been rocking this thing all week.
You got to check this out. I mean, when I first came across it about a month ago, I guess it was, and I was just blown away. I mean, the guitar solos in particular are incredible. He wrote every song on this album. The lead singers.
Yeah, you got Jeff Scott Soto and Russell Allen both coming in. Jeff Scott Soto, of course, Journey fame. It's a great rock album, and I think everyone's gonna like this thing. And Joel Hoekstra's done so much. He worked with, of course, joined Whitesnake in 2014. Working on the Purple album, and now on to the Greatest Hits tour. And Whitesnake out there they did a big run of U.S. dates earlier in the year. Now they're in Europe for the summer, and I can't wait, man. Joel Hoekstra, what a guy, and it's just a pleasure for us. We love doing this. We love having on guys like him, and the stories they have and the tales they tell. That's what makes this show what it is.
Absolutely, Clinton. Again, Joel Hoekstra, for me, one of the top five, I believe, for me that I've come across in a long time.
Well, I'll tell you what, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring on our very special guest. He's joining us live from Oslo, Norway, on the Whitesnake Greatest Hits Tour, Joel Hoekstra. Joel, welcome to the show, man. How's everything going, buddy?
Everything's going great, Clint. Thanks so much. We're having a great tour, man. As you said, it's the Greatest Hits Tour this year, so the set list is just... it's a Whitesnake fan's dream, man. I mean, every song is recognizable, and it just makes my job easier. I mean, it's when the audience knows all the songs, boy, it sure goes a lot easier.
Well, Whitesnake has a long lineage, a lot of songs, and I mean, David Coverdale's been at this for so long. I mean, just talk about kind of what it's like working with David and what he's been able to accomplish in the music business. I mean, he's into his 60s now. Not trying to date anyone here, but my gosh, he's still on top of his game. His vocals are still one of the best in rock. I mean, just kind of talk about what it's like working with him.
David's great. I mean, he's been really great to work for and work with. He's really supportive of all his players. He really goes out of his way to build us all up. Individually and collectively, which I totally appreciate. And he's very clear about what he expects from you. I mean, at the end of the day, even what I do is a job, and you're expected to be responsible and all that good stuff. And that's really all it comes down to with David in terms of getting his respect, is you have a clear communication and do your job and give him the very best you got every time out.
Well, you
I'm totally into, man.
Absolutely, and you worked with the band on the Purple album, which came out recently, and then did the Purple tour, and now here we are in this greatest hits tour. You guys did a lot of U.S. dates, and now here you are all over Europe this summer. I mean, my gosh, what's kind of the difference when you talk about in America? Whitesnake has such a large appeal. Of course, David's British himself, and the band sort of has like a worldwide appeal. Kind of, what's the difference been bringing this tour to the States versus over there in Europe so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people in the States are mainly familiar with Whitesnake from the Slide It In album, and then, of course, the 87 album, which had all the, Still of the Night and Here I Go Again and whatnot. And then the follow-up, Slip of the Tongue. That seems to be in the U.S. what most people are familiar with, and that includes me, because that's basically what I grew up on. Obviously, when I joined the band, I went back and listened to the whole catalog and everything. But there's a lot of diehards in the UK that really appreciate the blues background of Whitesnake. And there was a popular band in the UK long before it was in America. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference in terms of the opinion of what the greatest hits are from place to place. But there's a great level of support internationally for this band, and that was another one of the appealing factors for me in joining Whitesnake. Is a lot of the touring I had done previously was a lot of United States, and this really gave me an opportunity to get out and see the world a bit more and get some new fans, and it hasn't disappointed in that regard.
Well, Joel, you've been with Whitesnake now for about, 2 years, I think. Just kind of describe a little bit about how it came about and how you actually got into the band.
Yeah, well, I think it was a combination of me putting out some feelers about the gig when I heard it was available, and some well-respected people recommending me to David Coverdale. Chiefly amongst those, really Phil Carson, who manages Foreigner, and also Twisted Sister a bit as well. I believe he's still involved with. But I think Phil recommended me to David, and that really turned his head, and he had already been hearing my name a little bit, and that led to an audition, which basically amounted to me playing a little bit to the pre-production stuff for the Purple album. David put up Lady Double Dealer and gave me a shot at laying down a solo on it, and that went really well and really quickly, and wrote a little harmony solo on there that followed after, and then we did some singing and ate dinner, and I was offered the gig.
Well, it's you talk about having a reference. You could probably have a reference from about anywhere between 50 and 500,000 musicians that you've worked with over the years, Joel. Because my goodness, your career has been just so wide ranging. I mean, you've worked with Dee Snider, Ted Nugent. You've been a Nightranger. Robin Zander. I could sit here and name everyone that you've worked with. I mean, you did the Rock of Ages production and movie. I mean, just all these things that you've done. What a career. I don't even know what to say. I mean, you've just done so much.
I leave on the bio anybody who I've either been on a recording with or shared the stage with. And so some of that is a little deceptive. It's like some people are on my bio that I've only played with a time or two or appear on one song with, like in Ted's case. That's just I'm on a Nightranger bonus track for Coming of Age that Ted played on as well. So, I mean, some of that stuff is like, okay, yeah, but at the same time, I'm proud of that because it's like, hey, I'm on a track playing guitar and with Ted Nugent, and that's cool to me. And then, but I think most people probably know me from obviously working with Nightranger and the show Rock of Ages, and Trans-Siberian Orchestra are really the gigs leading up to Whitesnake that most people know me from. And scrap metal a bit, and Jim Peterick's World Stage is really what got me, a lot of that stuff got me started with Nightranger, really through playing with Jim.
Well, Whitesnake has a lineage of just some of the best musicians in rock history, working with David. I mean, from John Sykes to Doug Aldrich to Cozy Powell. I mean, Tommy Aldridge. Just kind of talk about the band now, because David's always surrounded himself with amazing musicians, and now you've got the lineup now, which Reb Beach playing opposite of him is unbelievable. Michael Devin, of course, on bass. Tommy Aldridge, a beast on drums. I mean, he's been in the band before, but Whitesnake's always had these wonderful musicians, and now the group now, I mean, it's as good as it's ever been, man.
Well, yeah, that's all a matter of opinion, of course, and I don't want to toot our own horn, but we love this lineup. We get along really well, which helps. There's chemistry there. And yeah, like you said, playing with Reb is great. He's a great guitar player, and I think we get off on playing rhythm together a lot, oddly enough, of all the things. But we really love locking and trying to be really tight on the riffs. And Tommy Aldridge, in my opinion, really gives this current lineup a lot of character. He has a distinctive sound that is Tommy Aldridge. He sounds just like Tommy. Some guys like myself, I mean, I do have my own style, but I think maybe it's not as recognizable as Tommy's style, and maybe as definitive as Tommy's style. So that's really his forte, I think, in this lineup. And we've got a nice hybrid of guys like myself and Michele Lupi, our keyboard player, who are newer to the band and enthusiastic about it, and guys like Reb and Tommy, who know the lay of the land really well and know the ins and outs of working with David. And yeah, we really enjoy working with each other, and I think it's a good lineup. And the fans certainly have, I feel like, welcomed me into the band with open arms. I'm very, very appreciative of that, because like you said, there's quite a history of great musicians. And at the end of the day, man, it just comes down to me doing the best I can with it on a daily basis, and getting down to, like I talked about with David, just treating it like it's a job, giving it my all and making sure that there would be no regrets if something did go wrong, where I could always say, well, I did absolutely the best I could with it, in terms of trying to make the fans happy and make David happy and the other guys in the band. So that's what my focus is.
Awesome. And you guys are keep rolling along, which is great, man. The sound is just extraordinary. But Joel, I want to talk a little bit about something that I came across here recently, actually, in the last couple of months, and that's Joel Hoekstra's 13, man. That is an incredible project for you guys, and I just wanted to ask you a little bit about how that came about, and is there a future involved in that? Because a couple of those songs were unbelievable. Dying to Live, I believe, is the name of the CD. So just talk a little bit about that project.
Yeah, I had 3 solo albums out years ago that were basically instrumental guitar albums, like you'd expect from a guitar player. 2 of them were kind of rock fusion, and one was a fingerstyle acoustic CD. So that was kind of before things took off for me in the hard rock scene. So obviously through playing with Nightranger and Rock of Ages and Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Whitesnake, I was building up a fan base of people going, you should make a solo album of rock music. And so basically that's what this is. The difference is it's not a guitar album. It's really kind of sounds like a band, but it's not a band. I wrote everything on it. I wrote all the lyrics and the vocal melodies, and basically all the musicians kind of did me a solid and did me a favor and helping out on the album. So I thought the appropriate thing was to give it a side project name, and hence the Joel Hoekstra's 13. I just kind of thought of that as, well, that'll be my rock side project. And I do enjoy writing songs and not just guitar opuses these days anyway. That's kind of been done by everybody ad nauseum. So anyway, it's a terrific lineup. Vinny Appice on drums and Tony Franklin on bass, killer rhythm section right there, and 2 of the best singers in rock today, really, in Russell Allen and Jeff Scott Soto. And Derek Sherinian did a great job on keyboards of putting the finishing touches on everything. It was very exciting for me. I mean, I felt like it gained me a lot of new fans, and just opened a lot of doors, I think, for me in the future.
That's awesome. Yeah, Vinny Appice, former Music Mania podcast alum, had him on just a couple months ago. And just, Paul and I both listened to this album. It's great stuff. I think it was described as, at its heaviest, it's can be compared to Dio, and at its softest, it could be compared to Foreigner. So is that accurate,
yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, that kind of became the model. I mean, I definitely wrote around the personnel. So I knew I was starting. The first people that kind of came into play were Tony Franklin and then Vinny Appice. So I knew obviously right there I didn't want to make it a progressive CD or anything like that. I just was like, hey man, let's write a cool, straight ahead hard rock CD along the lines of that early Dio stuff, which I love. Dio and Rainbow was also in the back of my mind as a model for what I could think of it as. And then some of the lighter songs, yeah, they come off more like that Joe Lynn Turner era Rainbow or Foreigner-ish. I would describe some of those tracks. But yeah, I just tried to make it straight ahead rock. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel on the CD or try and be inventive to some super high degree. I just wanted a great straight ahead rock album of songs the way I'd want to hear them as a fan, if that makes sense. So I avoided really long guitar solos and avoided just trying to show off for the sake of showing off. Everything on it was really about just making some cool rock songs.
Absolutely. And one particular song that I enjoyed was Until I Left You. I mean, talk about taking me back to my rock days. Unbelievable song. So we were blown away when we heard actually the whole album.
Yeah, and Jeff Scott Soto's on that one, right? That's a Jeff Scott Soto song. Yeah,
that's Jeff on there. That I had come up with that one really kind of out of I really love stuff like Jangle Pop too, like Tom Petty and the Goo Goo Dolls, which I kind of think of that song a little bit of having a little of their influence in an odd way. I mean, that stuff appeals to me. It has melody and real songs. So I didn't know if it was going to be right for the album, but I thought, well, I'll go ahead and have everybody record it. And then by the time you get all of these players putting their personality and spin on it, it sounded like it fit on the album. So in the end, I'm really glad I did include it.
Well, Joel, something interesting about you, I mean, as I've read it, you're the son of classical musicians, and I've always find this interesting when it comes to guitar players, because we've talked to guitar players like Chris Broderick from Megadeth, guys that kind of grew up classically trained as guitarists, and the difference between a guy that just walks up like an Ace Frehley and starts teaching himself how to play versus kind of someone that comes from a classical background. I mean, you did come from that classical background. I always found that interesting in rock, how people find their way to the instrument in different ways, and yet it all kind of winds up in the same place in this wonderful world of rock. But just kind of talk about your upbringing and your introduction to the instrument, and just kind of growing up in a musician's home, really.
Yeah, my parents had me going early on cello at 3 and piano at 7, and I didn't really take to either one, to be honest. At that age, I just wanted to play baseball or whatever. I didn't necessarily like it. And I think I was 11 when I heard AC/DC for the first time, and that changed everything. And I went to my parents saying I wanted to play guitar, and I just had visions of being Angus Young, basically. So despite the fact I did have that early classical influence in my life, and I did spend a couple years in college just playing classical guitar and not playing electric when I was, about 17 through 19 years old. The majority of my playing has been spent doing rock stuff, but I've also spent time playing jazz and tried to be a well-rounded musician and play different styles. I mean, I've played in hip-hop bands and Motown bands and, you name it, man. I feel like I've done every kind of gig there is, background classical and background jazz, and all that stuff was good for me in terms of making me a well-rounded musician. And these are the things that guys like me ended up doing who didn't get that early wave of the guitar being a popular instrument. By the time I got to Hollywood to go to GIT in, 91, the guitar scene just died. It was like Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, and that was that.
The grunge invasion.
Shrapnel Records went up, in vapor, and so I kind of had to find ways to be a pro guitar player and make myself valuable and be able to better myself as a musician. So all that stuff, I feel like in the end has really paid off for me. It made me a more well-rounded player than somebody who just kind of is a one-trick pony, so to speak.
No doubt about it, and well-rounded is a great term for you. So let me ask you this, Joel. What you would say would be the most gratifying of everything you've done so far? You know, obviously through the 90s and today with Whitesnake. What is the most gratifying for you?
Just that I made it this far making a living at it, bro. I mean, it's so tough to do. There's so many great players out there that don't necessarily get the opportunity to build a great career. They are indeed two different things. I mean, I think there's lots of great guitar players out there who are struggling with their careers, and vice versa. There's lots of people out there with slamming careers who aren't the best guitar players either. So they're not necessarily the same thing, although they can certainly aid each other. So I'm just happy to be still doing this, that the window hasn't closed on me at any point in time where I was forced to start waiting tables or something like that to make a living, you know, because I'd be screwed. I really have no skills in life outside of this. So that's pretty much the whole definition of success for me. If I can just get through my life making a living doing this, I'm good.
Well, you're out there in Oslo, Norway, with Whitesnake. Shows coming up this week and all through the summer. You're out there hanging out. I mean, what do you do out there in Norway? You're in Scandinavia. I told you beforehand, you know, not to get caught up in any black metal church burnings or anything like that while you're out there. So hopefully you're just chilling out. And what do you do when you're out there just hanging out in Norway today? Like, other than talk to us, which I know is a highlight, of course.
You know, I only got to the room here just a few hours before right now, and I just squeezed in my workout, and that's about it, and called home. So I'm about to go explore once we're done with the podcast here, and I'm going to go see what's happening in Oslo. It's my first time here, so I couldn't tell you yet.
Well, hopefully there's some adventures out there. You guys got a lot of dates, and go to whitesnake.com, check out all the tour dates, and you know, I'll tell you what, Joel Hoekstra 13 at Joel Hoekstra 13 on Twitter. Hopefully you're not out there trying to find Pokemon or anything like that, because there's a business at hand here for Whitesnake, and a lot of shows coming up. So, you know, Joel, I just tell you what, I can't thank you enough for coming on the Music Mania podcast, talking with us, man. This is what we love to do. We love to hear the stories from the musicians themselves. That's what we do. Man, I just can't thank you enough. And we got to get this tour back to the States and back to Kansas City where we are, so we can come say hello in person, man. We got to make that happen.
Yeah, well, we're doing everything we can to make sure David wants to keep on going with this. He's having a good time with this lineup right now, so we're just trying to be supportive and have fun, and hopefully we'll have a nice, long U.S. run next year. I don't know. Fingers are crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those two.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'll tell you what, have fun out there. We'll let you go. We kept you longer than we had anticipated, but the stories were so good, man. We love hearing from you. Have fun out there in Norway, and don't get in any trouble. Of course, that's you know, again, just stay away from the black metal guys. I know they're lurking around probably with their face paint on. So have a great show, man, in Oslo, and a great rest of the tour, man. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Appreciate it, Joel.
All right, bye-bye.
Clint, we can't thank Joel enough for being on our show. The guy was incredible, so incredibly talented, so incredibly
and professional, because we deal with a lot of
well-spoken as well.
Well, yeah, and we deal with a lot of musicians, and we interview a lot of people, and it's always a challenge because we're here in the Midwest. Most musicians are on the East or West Coast. Trying to schedule time-wise is usually a nightmare. Joel is in Oslo, Norway, and he basically said, "Hey, I'm 7 hours ahead of you. It should be 1 o'clock your time when I call. Is that going to work for you?" Wow, absolutely. And what a professional guy, man. And it just a huge pleasure. And definitely check out his side project, Joel Hoekstra 13. It's Dying to Live. It came out in October. We are rocking that album. Paul, we are rocking The Summer Away. And I'll tell you what, it's been a great summer so far. I hope everyone's out there enjoying some good rock shows. And here at the Music Mania Podcast, we plan on keeping the momentum going on through the summer, into the fall.
No doubt about it.
Well, football season, though, derail us, because it is absolutely our time of year when football hits as well. So, double dose.
We're huge sports fans, but we're also huge music fans, and it's incredible this time of the year with the weather being the way it is. You outdoor, indoor, it doesn't matter.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on the Music Mania Podcast. Be sure to hit us up on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thanks for downloading on iTunes. Give us a star rating. Give us a thumbs up. I don't know if that's not a thing. Maybe on YouTube you can do the thumbs up. I always get confused. These things are just go
give
play.
us a thumbs up on Facebook.
Just go play Pokemon Go or something. That's what you really want to do. Right. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Catch you on the next time, and appreciate it.